Today we've got Stephen from Haste. Super stoked about this, Stephen. Haste has been a band that I've been listening to for, oh God, how long now? Like at least 20 years, more than that even, maybe.
Man.
Or yeah, about 20 years, I'd say. Because I remember even before you got in the band, I was listening to all the stuff that Jimmy was putting out. I still remember watching Steel Roots and seeing the
Yes.
closest thing to Closure music video, where it almost is sort of like this like high school, like open
Yeah.
mic or whatever it is. I don't know what what the concept that they were trying to do, but anyway,
It
I still
was
remember seeing that on Steel Roots, and then obviously just fell in love with Haste from that point on. Fell in love with your kind of version of Haste once you entered the band. But anyway, we'll talk about all Haste stuff. But before we get into that, how you doing today, Stephen?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. This is awesome. It's good to chat with you boys.
We're
Love
excited.
it. I got to say that you're for all the visual watchers of the podcast, you have one of the most comforting setups I've ever seen.
Oh,
behind
well,
you.
thank you. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I've got a studio here. I'm a composer by trade. So, yeah, I've got instruments all around me. I've got my piano over here, which I do a lot of work at, and
You got
a
the little
few.
practical light behind you too. You got
Yep.
like a YouTube
Yeah.
setup.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
is that
I'm
a
a
Stradivarius I spot up there too?
No, oh no. That is a broken violin that I still use, but I
nice.
am horrible at violin. It looks about as good as it sounds, and it sounds a lot worse than it looks when I play it. But there's cool things like Melodyne, auto tune, and a whole lot of
Yeah.
reverb, so makes
Yeah.
it sound
Yeah.
cool.
Fixes a lot of mistakes.
If you can
Mhm.
if you can make my voice sound good, then you definitely are able to like use all the you've been using all the technology available to you to make my voice sound good. That's how bad
There's
of
a
a
lot
singing
out
voice I
there.
got.
I mean, now, I'm really looking into AI to just replace my voice entirely
There you
because,
go. I've seen like programs, right? You could just like say a sentence and then it just like figures it out for you.
a lot of musicians are terrified of it, but you know what? I'm just going to use it just to replace myself,
Yeah.
and then I can go hang out,
You
right?
don't even have to lip sync on stage anymore. You can just do it in the studio.
I'm just going to put a laptop on a stool and just like put a microphone up to it and then press the AI button. That's how it works, right? Right,
That's
Stephen
That's pretty
Keech.
much
that's
what
what I
DJs
heard.
do these days, right?
Actually, this is a funny. I heard of some AI program. Like 3 or 4 people texted it to me the other day, all trying to get my opinion on it. And I hadn't really played around with it, but I did go into it and I typed in "write a song in the style of Haste the Day," and it was pretty freaky.
Was it good?
No, but it was it was interesting. It was like it kind of got it. It kind of understood. There was definitely like some screaming vocals. It couldn't figure out which kind of hardcore we were, or like
Yeah.
hardcore or metal, or so it like just kept
Right.
trying different things. Like one of them would be like super butt rock, and then the other one would be like beat down hardcore, which was really interesting that it even knew how to make beat down hardcore music.
Right.
Like it sounded like an old Face Down Records band.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Did it
like
sound
something
like
that,
what Haste probably sounded like when it first got together?
yeah, actually there was a little bit of that like EP in there a little bit, maybe vocally. But yeah, it was pretty freaky and interesting. But
Wow.
yeah.
Totally unrelated question, but knowing you guys are from Indiana, and are you one of those guys that are also from Indiana? I know
Not.
you're not. Okay, well maybe you
Yeah.
don't have any opinions about this then. Also, I hate that Apple has this thing now where if you like
Oh, that
put
is
your thumb
cool.
up
Wait,
it,
can you do that? Can I do that? No.
no,
We're
it
not.
should. I think
Are
Where's
you
you an
hold it
Apple
long
mine?
user?
enough.
Look
I
at
think you can
that.
hold it. Yeah, I just hate that. Like, but every now and then, like I'll have my like hands like this or whatever, and it just assumes that that's a thumb up. But
Do the peace
anyway,
sign. The peace sign is one is the best.
Yeah, can mine do that?
oh
No.
yeah,
Do
I think I also can do. Is it gonna do it? Oh, there we go.
What?
And then I can do. Let's see if it does this. I have to be closer. The funny thing is,
Wow.
this camera is not the actual like Apple camera. I'm using a camera that's like an external camera, and Apple's
Weird.
still able to like figure that out.
I'm using my
AI,
iPhone
man.
and it's not doing anything. Come on, man.
That is odd. It should do it
Okay.
with an
Done.
iPhone, but
All right.
anyway.
So
Well, I was gonna
Indianapolis. I
ask you. I
did
was gonna
live there
ask
for a
you.
while.
Well, I was gonna ask you. Indiana won the Caitlin Clark sweepstakes, and I don't know if
Okay.
you've been paying attention to women's basketball at all, but like, kind of a big deal that
Okay.
Indiana was able to draft probably, at least at this point, maybe one of the most famous basketball players in the world.
Wow.
And
Men or
anyway,
women.
yeah, men or women.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
is. Actually, I saw something today that I mean, she just was drafted like last week, so she's not even been an Indiana Pacer for more than a week. She has sold more jerseys now already a
Wow.
week later than the entire Dallas Cowboys team had all together last year.
Wow. That's
Like,
crazy.
she's that popular. So anyway, I thought maybe
that's
if you were
awesome.
from Indiana, maybe you had some thoughts, because it does feel like it's gonna, give a little boost to Indianapolis in particular. But if
I
you're
would
not from
say,
Indiana, you probably don't care.
yeah, I don't care, but I care for her. I mean, I think that that's awesome. That's great. That's a huge
Yeah.
accomplishment. I'm not really a sports person. I've always tried. Like
Really?
I've tried so hard to get into football. I just get
Yeah, but
sidetracked and uninterested.
yeah, I mean,
and-
especially, but if you're a Titans fan, or if you're in Nashville, so being a Titans fan, there's
That's
there's
not
no
fun.
better way to not get into football than
Yeah.
being in Nashville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
that's very
okay,
true.
so I moved around a ton when I was a kid. So I was born, you mentioned Dallas Cowboys. I was born in Dallas. Moved around, lived in Chicago during the Bulls dynasty, which was actually
Oh,
probably
been
the
nice.
height of my sports enthusiasm when I
Did
was a
you
kid.
have the Bulls starter jacket that everyone had?
No, I was poor, so I didn't have that kind of cool stuff. But I do remember, like, this is kind of a sweet memory. I remember my dad went to a Bulls game, and he took me to several later. But I remember I was excited for him to go to, because Michael Jordan, he was like a god to
Yeah.
people. It was just wild. And so he was at this Bulls game, and he came home and he had he bought a towel, like a Bulls towel, and laid it on my bed when I was asleep. And I woke up with this Bulls towel on my bed. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. So that was the height of my sports enthusiasm. But then moved to Georgia, back to Texas, and then ended up in Denver, Colorado, where
Oh.
I did most of my formative growing up.
Wow.
And then
Good.
ended up in Indy after I joined the band.
Right.
You're just getting
Okay.
all the biomes, all the American biomes. I love it.
Right.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was interesting to live in all different climates and and even different people. Like, the people in all of those different places are
Right.
completely separate.
You basically were on tour as a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually thinking about it. I have two older sisters, and I didn't go to even one school with either of them because they
Wow.
were just old enough to where when I was in elementary school, they were in middle school, and we'd move before I'd get to that middle school and all the
Wow.
way up through high school. And
What caused the moving so often?
my dad's a pastor, and we
Oh
Oh.
yeah.
we were
That'll
just
do it.
following the call,
Gotcha. Interesting. What denomination was he a pastor of?
non-denominational.
Okay.
I know that's a really broad
Yeah.
spectrum. I would say that it was somewhere kind of in the charismatic, maybe in the, if Hillsong was a small church and
Okay.
not quite as damaging.
I mean, it used to be a smaller church.
Right. No, like, we're talking about a really small church.
So you're
But,
saying that your dad's a really hot dude, then, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A hot
nice
dude.
to
You
Since
mean
it's
like Hillsong is hot dudes? Is that what?
yeah, it's all hot dudes up on stage giving the word.
Oh, I mean, he's an attractive man, but
Well, you are,
Yeah.
so I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, so makes sense to me.
thank you.
A smoking hot wife.
But yeah, so anyway, we moved around a lot, and I don't know, I kind of like that I moved around a lot. It taught me a lot of social skills.
Yeah. I mean,
That-
it would
yeah.
have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unless you just like wanted to be stuck inside all day. But
Right.
yeah,
Well,
you're gonna.
let's that there's a good segue there. Um, moving around all this time, you finally get to put down some roots and you start a band. Um,
hmm
I assume there's other bands before Haste Today, or was Haste Today the first thing
No,
you started?
no, I started a band when I was a freshman in high school, called New Day Awakening, and
Oh
it
yeah,
was
oh
with
yeah.
Dave Creasel, who is the guitar player of Haste Today. Um, and we started out as kind of like an emo band. And of course, before that, I tried several times to start bands, and all of those failed. Just like everybody else in the world, I had a band named Spork. I feel like
Oh,
that was like
nice.
a, you know,
Was that a thing? Like to name your band Spork?
Oh
I've
yeah.
met so many people who were like, "Oh, I had a band named Spork." It was like, I don't know why.
Were they
You
all
want to
like
know?
ska bands or what? Like what kind
Yeah,
of band
I
would
mean, it was
Spork
that
be?
was what I was into, like ska and pop punk, like, but all Christian ska and pop punk back then. And
Right.
Spork was quirky enough of a name to fit the bill, I guess. So
I love that.
we never
I,
actually practiced. We just talked about t-shirt designs.
oh yeah, that's exactly how it always starts. I had
Yeah.
a band like that starting off as well, and we called ourselves Incubus, not
Oh,
knowing about Incubus, and I was like, "That's a good name." And it was taken. I was like, "Yeah, they're probably not that good anyway."
yeah. I did when I was looking for new names, I did highly consider Pennywise. Uh,
Oh man.
and then I realized, and no, I had not ever seen it. Uh, I just had heard the name Pennywise somewhere and forgotten that I heard it, and then was like, "Yeah, that's a great name for a band." And then, yeah, somebody was like, "Dude, that's already a band. You can't
Yeah,
do that." I was like, "Oh,
kind of a
okay,
legendary one. Yeah.
yeah, pretty legendary." So yeah, ended up calling it New Day Awakening. We played lots of shows. We started out as a 4-piece, um, and just really went for it in Denver. And by the time we were juniors in high school, we'd gone from like full on emo rock to like metalcore. And just I quit playing guitar, and somebody else took over for that, and I just was running around on stage screaming into a microphone. So and we were playing quite a bit, uh, and playing around Denver, and we had a really, I mean, that time in Denver was such an amazing scene. The local scene, like from, I guess that would have been from like 2002 to, I mean, probably even after. And I hear it's still amazing today, but it was so tight knit, and we knew so many bands that were all doing the same things, and even doing things for the same reason that we were doing it. Um, and it was just an amazing community. Everybody had like a venue, like we're playing at people's houses, or we were playing at like weird places like Tim's Net Guru Cafe, where we can set up in the middle of this weird internet cafe, because that was still a thing back then. Um, and just have a great show, and kids would show up to it. It
Wow.
was amazing. And that's how we ended up we played with Haste Today a couple times. That's how they ended up scooping me up and
Hmm.
kind of stealing me from all my best friends.
Well, before we get into like you joining Haste Today, I do want to know, especially as somebody who professionally screamed for a time, like that it like you think back of like some of my first jobs, and I'm like I was whatever, like I was an umpire for the high school, the baseball teams, or I like was an RA for a while or whatever. So I'm like thinking back to my first jobs, and to think that like one of your first jobs was literally to scream as loud as you can into a microphone is like such a weird thing to like figure out. Oh, I'm good at that and I can make money doing that, or some kind of money for it. So
It
can you
was
talk about like
insane.
how you ended up like even discovering that you can actually scream and scream well enough that people actually want to like willingly listen to it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I kind of stumbled on it on accident, I guess. Um, like I said, we were like kind of more of an emo band, and I was really inspired by bands like Thursday and Finch, and bands that would sing primarily, but then also like scream sometimes. And now they unfortunately call that screamo, but at the time that was like, I felt like it was an insult or something. I was like, no, it's just emo. It was really emotional. And there was a local band that they were kind of legendary, called Save Face.
Oh, yeah.
And John, their screamer, was a friend of my sister's, and I was able to ask if he would scream on our EP. So he did these like screaming parts on the EP. And the next show after that, after we released our EP, we never talked about it. I never practiced it. And he had this like kind of whisper scream that sounded really cool. Like it was just very whispery. There was a band, Self-Minded, like kind of like that scream.
Okay.
And I did not know how to do that at all. And so I'm playing it and we're getting closer to that part. And I just remember feeling like, am I going to do it? I don't know if I'm going to do it. I'm probably not going to do it. I don't think I'm going to do it. And then I was like, ah! And I remember everyone's reaction was just kind of like,
whoa,
what is this? Like my parents were in the audience and everything. And they were always really supportive. They knew that I listened to, screaming music and kind of understood that. But I think it just genuinely sounded bad. So everybody was just kind of like, yeah. When did you decide to do that part? I was like, oh yeah. In the moment, was it cool? Yeah, just, you'll get there. It's cool. Like you'll get there. So it was just something I knew I kind of needed to work on and figure out. But yeah, eventually I ended up, like, I remember we were doing not the next EP. The next EP, I think I was screaming more like Dan from Zayo, like, because they were one of my favorite bands. And then the next one, I tried a low scream, and everybody was like, when did you figure that out? This is awesome. It's so heavy and brutal. And I was like, cool.
Brutal.
Okay.
That was
brutal.
the word of the time, wasn't it?
Oh, it's
With 2
brutal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So it was never something that I thought would be my career. Because what I started a band for was to write music. I loved writing music, and I loved hearing it come together in, like, it was just us playing it. It was just magical to me. So, and it still is, honestly, like getting together and playing something that we've written together as a band, or I wrote in my bedroom or whatever, was just really exciting. And then screaming was kind of a means to an end for that, and something I just kind of fell into. And of course it's fun, and I like doing it, and it's really fun to jump around on a stage and go nuts, but and to interact with people who are want to interact with you. So but yeah, it was never my intent, but kind of a happy accident, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it has kind of set you up for your entire life here. I mean, do you make your entire income from creating music still to this day?
I do. Yeah.
There's so few people in the world that can say that. Like, that's got to be a very, very tiny sliver of people that actually make their entire living from creating music. It's impressive.
And that is because it is really hard.
Yeah.
I question it sometimes. I'm like, maybe I should just get a sales job. And then, because like all my neighbors, like I live in the suburbs, all of my neighbors are in sales. They're either electrical engineers or they're in sales. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. And then I think about it, and I'm like, nah, it's crazy. But yeah, it's got its ups and downs. But ultimately, it's the thing that I'm most qualified to do, and the thing that I love to do. So I'm blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Well, no reason to make any changes if it works for you and you love to do it.
Yeah. I guess the only reason to make a change is financial, because people don't love paying musicians.
It's
You
weird,
kind of
isn't
have to like, yeah, you really have to fight for yourself. But
Well, let's talk about how you got into Haste Today. Obviously, it sounded like you met the guys at one point while you were doing some touring. But obviously, Jimmy ends up leaving, and they're looking for a new vocalist. Like, what's the story of how they ended up asking you to be a part of it?
yeah. So, like I said before, we begged. We were doing some shows with a production company in Denver called Soda Jerk, and Soda Jerk was booking, all the cool shows, and they were booking all the Haste Today shows as well. And we were such big fans of Haste Today. Like when Everything Falls came out, we were like, oh my gosh, they just perfected the like singing and screaming pop structure, like metal song. It's perfect. And so we begged them. We were like, please put us on every Haste Today show that comes to town. We want to be on every Haste Today show. And they did. They started putting us on Haste Today shows. And our first one was I'm trying to remember who it was with. I think it was a one-off, and it was them and a bunch of local bands. And then we did one more after that, and they remembered us somehow and asked for us to be on the show. Like they called Soda Jerk and asked if we were going to be on the show. And apparently it was because they were looking for new singers, and Jimmy had already told them that he was quitting, and they remembered me somehow.
Wow.
And I remember that night we played and they all came and got my phone number. And I was like, dude, we are going to get signed to Solid State and go on tour with Haste Today. This is awesome. They want to be friends. They want to take us on tour. I know it.
Also, how old are you at this point?
I was 18.
Okay.
Wow.
So I was
had you just graduated high school yet, or were you still in high school?
Let's see. At this point, yeah, I had just graduated. So this would have been the summer after I graduated that we probably played the show towards the end of the summer. And then I got a phone call in October. And I remember this so clearly. It was one of the most surreal moments, I think, of my life. I was at a Barnes and Noble with just a bunch of friends, like you do at like 9 p.m. on a Tuesday or something. And we were sitting outside of the Starbucks, and I just get this call, and it says Jason HTD, and I was like, that can't be Jason from Haste Today. Like, do I know somebody, a Jason with an HTD last name? Like, no. So I answered, and he straight up, he was like, hey, so Jimmy is stepping down from the band, and we need somebody to fill in for our tour in Europe with the Juliana Theory. Are you interested in going? And I remember clear as day saying, do you want me to go do merch? Like I couldn't fathom that they wanted me to go like sing. I just couldn't, and he's like, no, we want you to fill in as singer. We're like, oh, I was like, okay. Well, the thing is that this is around, like I said, this is around October of 2005. The tour was in January of 2006. And my band, we had just made the big life decision that we're going to quit everything. Everyone's quitting school. We're quitting our jobs.
Oh,
we're hitting the road in January. And this is it. And we're going to make this thing work. And so I told him no. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't. Like, I can't do that. Because they weren't asking me to be a member of the band.
Yeah, not a permanent.
Right, so in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, well, I'm I can't like give up this thing that could be a lifetime thing for something that is just 1 month or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to like abandon my friends, and it was tough. But so I remember I called him, or I got off the phone. I basically said no, and I got off the phone, and I went back to my big group of friends and they were like, who was that? And I was like, it was Jason from Haste Today. And he's like, whoa, what did he want? They asked me to scream on a tour in Europe. Like I'm like processing it as I'm telling them. And they were all like, yes, are you doing it? And I was like, no, I said no. And they were like, are you an idiot? Like, and I was like, I think I might be an idiot. I think I might be an idiot. Maybe I shouldn't have told him no. And so I called him back and I didn't say yes yet. I just told him like, could I get more information on that tour? Maybe I can make it work. It was like 20 days or something. So like theoretically I could have made both work and the guys would understand, but I was still like pretty hard no. And I remember calling all the guys and telling them what had happened. And they all told me that I should do it. And also we're all super disappointed and bummed. And, you know, it's a, like, it sucks, but it's also awesome. Right. And I didn't say yes for like another month, probably. And I remember getting a call from Mark LaFay, Haste Today's manager, who ended up becoming one of my best friends, but he scared the living crap out of me because I'm picturing him as like he's in a suit, right? Like he's the manager of a huge, in my mind, a massive, gigantic band.
Right.
So he's got to wear a suit and carry a briefcase to work. Probably works at the top of like a huge building or something. And he called me and he's like, and he literally said this, he's like, are you ready to move from Denver to Indianapolis and leave all of your friends and family to join this band? And I was like, no,
Whoa.
I'm not. Like, I don't even know these guys. Like, no, I'm not. And he was like, all right, well, we're just not interested. And then I get a call from the band and they're like, no, we're still interested. Like we're still around. Let us know if you change your mind, please.
Wow.
And I worked at Chili's at that time. I was in the to-go window.
Did you feel God? Did you feel God there?
No, I didn't feel God.
You didn't feel God in this Chili's?
Oh, is that a song?
No, it's a Office reference, isn't it?
Yeah, Office.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed that. You feel God in this Chili's. Okay. I was sitting there in the to-go area just thinking like, man, this sucks. Why am I doing this? And I was like, all right, I think I just have to do it. I've got to say yes. And it's going to hurt a little bit, but I've got to say yes. And I called Mark that night. I wasn't supposed to be on my phone. So I was like, hey, Mark, yeah, I'm going to do it. And he was like, okay, cool. And then like hung up the phone. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I walked right into the manager's office. Steve was my manager. And I was like, Steve, I'm going to Europe and I don't think I'm coming back. And he goes, okay.
That's like, that's okay. Straight up main character energy, man. You're like, I'm in a fucking movie right now.
I'm out of this town. Oh man,
I'm going to Europe. I'm never coming back.
So did you basically move to Indianapolis from that point, or did you go on tour first and then, or were you still at that point like a fill-in, or like did they consider you a fill-in, or did they like consider you full member right away? Like what did that look like?
I was a fill-in through that tour, and then it was halfway through the next tour, which was Bleeding Through Every Time I Die and Between the Buried and Me, and we were opening that tour. So it was the sickest tour lineup for a 19-year-old. And halfway through that tour, we were in Denver and everybody was staying at my parents' house, and they like asked me to be in the band at the like dinner table with my parents there and everything. It was a pretty special moment.
It's like getting engaged at Christmas or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
It feels, I was going to say, it feels a lot like courtship, like awkward teenage courtship.
I mean, it really is. Like being in a band is like being married. It's you're kind of taking the good with the bad all together. Yeah, exactly. And so I didn't move to Indianapolis until the following December, I think. I mean, we were on tour so much, it didn't really matter where I lived. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't really hang out at home. So it was like I would just fly back to Denver and they'd fly back to Indy. And then I'd fly into Indy for rehearsals or whatever.
It does feel like a
go
movie.
ahead,
I'm
Colin.
not going to lie. It does.
It kind of felt like that movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg. I remember people telling me like, "Oh, that your story is Rockstar." Like, and I was like, "No, it's not." And then I watched the movie. I was like, "Well, okay, yeah,
It kind of is.
Without all the like drugs and alcohol."
Yeah. At least that we know of.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of alcohol, but
Just
that progressively got more as the years went on.
well, let's talk about those years going on. Obviously, again, you become kind of full-fledged member. Did you ever, this is always interesting to talk with lead singers who are not the original lead singer, because obviously there is always that dynamic, especially when you have someone like Jimmy who's so beloved by Haste Today fans. Like, obviously you're stepping into a band that's like really well established at this point. They're great. And so I would imagine you love that part of being with Haste Today, but also I would imagine there's still some people, maybe even still today, that are still like, oh, I love it so much more when Jimmy was in the band, and like, why did that Stephen guy have to ruin it all, or what? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like, did you
people
ever
say
have
that a
to
lot.
navigate that dynamic, especially maybe early on?
Yes, definitely. And yeah, it was kind of a main theme throughout, which, I mean, I was also very supported by the fans, but there were definitely some like people. I remember, this might paint a little bit of a picture. I can't remember which tour it was. It could have been our headliner or something. No, I think in that first year we went on tour with maybe It Dies Today, or I don't remember. But we were playing the show and I messed up the pit call. It was like this high energy moment. And I was like, all right, everybody, I want to see the biggest place this pit has ever seen. And I realized I messed it up like halfway through, and I just committed and just said it. And there was this girl in the front row, and she's just looking at me just like, and she goes like this. And I was just like, and to me, I internalized that as
Jimmy would have never made that mistake.
Jimmy would have never made that mistake, which is just so funny. But yeah, another time I remember this kid, we were playing this little tiny Eagles Lodge, like no stage. It was just packed in there. It was in Kansas City, I think. And this kid passed out in the front row, and I like helped him outside and I gave him water, and like he came to and he looked at me and he's like, "Oh, Haste Today, man, I never saw Jimmy. Like, I just really wish I would have seen Jimmy." And it was like one of those moments where I was like, yeah, he was great.
Glad I helped
man.
you.
Yeah.
Glad I helped you out, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you okay?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm Steven, by the way.
my name is Steven. Nice to meet you. But no, I mean, it's good. And I think a lot of it is probably internal. It's a hard thing because I was a big fan of the band as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a hard transition. But Jimmy was really supportive. Like during the transition, he was super encouraging, and yeah, and there was enough time like throughout. Now it's not really like even a thing, but now it's just fun to see. Like when Jimmy came up at Furnace Fest, like it got rowdy, and it was just really fun to watch. And,
it
like,
definitely did.
Take a step aside and just see him have fun, and it was a cool thing.
Yeah, you can tell like when Jimmy gets up front at Furnace Fest, like the fans, the hairs of the fans get a little grayer. Like the ones that move up front, they're just a tad bit grayer than the fans of Stephen, the Stephen version of Haste.
Yeah, there was definitely it was an interesting thing because I don't know many bands that went through like kind of almost an entire band changeover like we did.
Yeah.
Like, and everybody got progressively younger. So we ended as a younger band than, like we
Yeah.
just, it was a really interesting shift. And we always had, Mike was the original member that stuck it out through the entire thing. But yeah, at the end, we were almost a totally different lineup, very different dynamic. But it was fun. It brought some new life to the band. It was cool.
Yeah. It's weird that every single kind of version of Haste the Day is beloved, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's relatively equal. I think that fans of the more recent years of Haste the Day are just as big of fans as, the earliest years. It is kind of crazy that way because it's a very different sounding band throughout.
It is.
While there are some elements that are similar, I mean, it is definitely a different band basically, and every single version of it is great.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I agree. And I just think that like we were really surprised at these last few shows. We were talking to pretty much a lot of the people that we've talked to, because I mean, it's no surprise. Like when we did Attack of the Wolf King, we were probably at the lowest we had been for a while, like as far as like album sales. And part of that is because the industry was just kind of failing. That was right at the time where there was a big switch over to streaming.
Which is wild because it's in my opinion, it's your best album.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate
absolutely.
that. Yeah. I really love that album and I'm really proud of it. And I was just really stoked to hear that a lot of the people that were coming out to see songs from that album. And I was like, and even like the fact that they liked some of one of the crowd favorites was White as Snow. And that's a super weird song for Haste Today.
Yeah.
Like, very off the cuff, like not a normal song for us. And, but also one of my favorites. And to see people's phones come out during that song, like was just really cool. And, yeah, it was validating. Cause we always wondered, I internalized this, like I said, like, did I destroy the band? We were on a trajectory of up, and then I started writing weird songs, and then did I kill the band? The answer is yes and no, but I was really excited to see that like some of those strange songs connected with people in a way that I didn't expect. So,
yeah, I can totally understand that, and I'm glad that you joined the band. I don't think you took anything away from it. I don't think anyone else really thinks that. That's probably an internalized thing that you're.
I'm sure it is.
So Mason, I don't know if this is actually true for you, but Furnace Fest was actually the first time I got to see you guys live.
No way.
Mason and I were stuck in the very northern part of the central United States where bands never came, and we were always too poor to be able to drive to,
like Sioux Falls would have been the closest place that any band would ever maybe show up.
Yeah, and that was pretty rare.
Yeah, nobody went to Sioux Falls even.
And so seeing you guys was great. I am kind of bummed that Jimmy came up because I wanted to see what you did with the old stuff.
Really?
I have no idea what you would have done. Like, did you try to like imitate Jimmy, or did you just do your own thing with Jimmy's stuff?
I asked them in that first tour that I did, I was like, would you like me to imitate Jimmy's voice? Cause it's like it was a, very distinct style of screaming. And like I said, I mean, it's a little bit kind of like that Dan Wyatt, like Zayo sound.
A little more throaty though, I would say.
A little more throaty.
Glottally, is that what you said?
And I was like, I could do that. And they just told me, they were like, just be yourself. Just do what sounds cool to you. And they gave me a lot of freedom. And so I was able to kind of make those my own. And it is really funny because like, it is different, I like, but it became, I don't know. I played those songs so much. Like we played those songs for years and years. I've played them thousands of times.
Yeah.
And now it's like second nature. And it's cool. Cause like now I feel a little bit of ownership of those songs, even though I wasn't a part of it at the beginning. But yeah, I especially like Blue 42, that song just rips, man. It rips all the way through. And
Yeah.
That was one of the gnarliest pits. This last Furnace Fest was during Blue
Oh
it
my
42.
gosh,
really
it was
is.
wild
People
in
went
there.
nuts during that song. In
I was not
particular.
expecting that from Haste Today necessarily.
People go like that has always been a crowd favorite, I think. Like people go
Oh
nuts.
yeah.
I mean, it has a bass solo, so
Yeah.
Mike gets to shine. Mike's really
Yeah.
he's really getting his moment in the spotlight there, and people love it
Oh, for sure. For sure. For good reason, right?
for good reason. He is the hot one. People used to say like girls would come up after the show and like be like, "Hey, where's the hot one?" And like point to Mike on the poster. I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, he's over there." That was awesome.
You were really hoping it was you, but
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, what?" Oh,
You're like,
no,
I'm right here.
he's over
lady."
there.
you're talking to him.
You're talking.
So, um, so we've talked to Norma Jean once with their drummer Matt, but we've never been able to talk to Corey about this. And if we ever interviewed Norma Jean, I would love to hear from him about this. But there's sort of a similar story for you all in Haste a Day, where you
Yeah.
obviously again have this new singer come in. You have this kind of rotation of artists that are a part of Haste a Day, even especially throughout your time in the band, and yet even in the midst of that kind of constant rotation of songwriters and musicians in the band, there is this sort of distinctive Haste the Day sound. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't, and I'd love to hear just kind of what you think that might be,
Mm,
especially given the fact that there are different songwriters throughout the entire history of Haste the Day. There's different musicians. So
yeah.
I'm wondering, maybe there's like a certain tone in the guitars of Haste the Day. Maybe it's like the songwriting. Maybe it's just the structure of the songs. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
like I'd love to hear like kind of like what your idea of like that quintessential Haste the Day sound is that has been the sort of thread that has ran throughout the entire band's history.
Interesting. That is a great question. I've never fully processed that before. I think that there was because there wasn't just like a straight up flip flop of member
Right.
changes. There was like it was a lot of overlap. Each record had one new member, two new
Right.
member. You know, it was so. I think this maybe the songwriting. We always really put melody first. A lot of times, and put a lot of thought and energy into what the melody or the chorus was going to be. Um, and then second to that is what the breakdown is going to be. um, and I don't know. I do think that there are some through lines. It could be the like ethos of the band. We always
Mm,
uh, we really wanted to center our message around love and tell stories about that and tell stories that were inclusive and um, brought people in and that could play a part. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I think it was just we talk about the legacy of Haste the Day because it feels like a legacy because
mhm.
at one point it stops being about who's in the band and it's more just about the idea and energy of Haste the Day and
Right.
you know whether you call it a Christian ideals or following Jesus or just looking for something deeper in life. uh, I felt like or just like focusing on that message of love and acceptance and inclusion. I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I ask, I've even heard like someone like Corey Brandon from Norma Jean say something along the lines that Norma Jean is kind of this collective of artists.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Corey has been in Norma Jean for over 20 years now, and so he probably is that sort of through line and why
Yeah.
Norma Jean has like remained obviously very different with each album, but there's still kind of this like general song writing, maybe tone, whatever it is, like that has remained true for Norma Jean, especially since Corey has been in the band. And so, yeah, I was just curious. Maybe you've had like thoughts around that with Haste Today, especially given the fact that there's been different songwriters, musicians. You know, there has been a rotation of artists, even if it means that there's only like maybe a couple new band members each album.
Yeah, and I think we also try to write Haste Today music because it's like it is a style and it is like a um it's you're kind of just like, okay, what does Haste Today sound like, and you're kind of playing around with ideas. We always push the envelope of that, of course, but
Right.
yeah,
You do
tried
have
to
like some
center it
abstract
around.
notion of this is a like when you're writing a song and
Mhm.
you know the difference between, oh, this is just a song like that's my own like maybe solo thing, and oh, this is
Yeah,
a Haste Today song. Like there's something
yeah,
about the way you're writing that song, the tone that you're looking for in the guitars, obviously even like the drum production. There is a distinctive like sound that you know, oh, that's a Haste Today song
yeah.
versus this is somebody else's song or a different heavy band song or my solo stuff or whatever.
You know, something just occurred to me, and I think it's just that there's always somebody in the band that helps steer that. It's never been me. uh, but there, like, I remember when we were writing Dreamer, and I was into, post-hardcore, like, rock, like just like weird stuff, and I wanted to just write sludgy, slow stuff. And so I wrote this riff, and I brought it to the band, and it was like in 6/8, it was like this like really sludgy, slow riff. And then Devin, the drummer at the time, he was like, okay, why don't we do it like this? Just you guys play this, so it's still the same part, but then he put this really fast drum beat over it that was like, and then it went from like sludgy to like metal, and that song turned into 68.
Oh, nice.
Which is cool. Like, I mean, it
Yeah.
turned into what it needed to be. So it was like, of course, I came in with a very not Haste the Day idea, and it got put through the Haste the Day filter, and then it sounded like Haste the Day, and even that was like it was a little dark for Haste the Day, I guess. But it still sounds like Haste the Day.
It absolutely does. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think you said it earlier that there was this focus on melody and this focus on creating. I wouldn't necessarily say catchiness, but there is a little bit of like an earworm kind of mystique to Haste the Day. But the one thing that I always appreciated about Haste the Day, first and foremost, was probably the riff writing. I mean, the riffs were just they were definitely things, they were lines that they would get stuck in your head and they were memorable. You know, there wasn't a lot of that, I wouldn't say necessarily. There was a lot of riff writing, but not necessarily memorable riff writing in that scene at that time. And Haste the Day stood out because of that. That's
cool.
really the through line, in my opinion. But
yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, like early on, I remember I'm pretty sure Brennan wrote a lot of like Burning Bridges era stuff with a lot of help from Jason, and then I think Jason wrote most of the riffs on When Everything Falls, and I could be wrong, but I think this is how it went. And then Pressure the Hinges, Jason wrote a lot, and I wrote a little bit, and then so he I think Jason really kind of defined a lot of the like early sound of the riffs, and some of those cool like the riff to When Everything Falls is just like it's pretty
so cool.
And he has a very specific style. I know that every guitar player, all the newer guitar players, they have a hard time with that riff. It's like hard to kind of figure out because it's tight, but it's loose and it's got a style to it. And then, after that, we actually, funny story, Dreamer was not played by any guitar player in Haste Today.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. I wrote the riffs, and Brennan didn't want to play on it.
Did you write the like the main one for Stitches?
No, that was Jason. Yeah.
Okay, that was Jason. That one is
I re-
that
on
one
that
blows
record.
my mind.
Yeah, it's a good one. On Press the Hinges, I did the Minor Prophets, Chorus of Angels, and
Oh, wow.
Needles. Those were my three. Which I was so excited. It was my
Those
first
are a
record.
good 3 to have on your resume there.
Thanks. But yeah, then after that, like Scotty, like, man, he is a monster at guitar, and he is just so good. And like the riffs that he could write are not of this world. I'm just in awe of his writing style. Like a lot of like Wolf King, we collaborated a lot as a band with that one, but he could just take like a dumb riff that I write, and just turn it into something that's just like, what is that? Like, this is so cool. And like some of this, like he came to the band with Travesty, and we were like, this is sick. But it also kind of
That's
had
awesome.
that, like, it kind of had a little bit of that Stitches like quality to it, that movement to it, which kind of is that like Haste Today sound, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Dude, I dig that. That's cool. I know there's so many more things we want to talk to you about, but I do want to talk about Beautiful Failures, your podcast.
Cool. Yeah.
Because this thing is super cool. I love that you're focusing kind of like the motto of the podcast, or the theme, I guess, around this idea that we're all failures in some sort of way, or we've all failed at something, and we're using that to learn from and to grow from. How did this come about? And I think you're like, what, 17 episodes in, 18 episodes in, something like that, right?
Yeah. I think we're about to record our 17th. Yes.
Okay. All right. They're great episodes, but just tell us about how you came up with the idea, and how you got some of these great guests. It's fantastic so far. I listened to every single episode.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I guess this was a couple years ago. My friend Andy and I were talking. I mean, we're both freelancers and creatives. He's a director, and I'm a composer. So we just were commiserating about a lot of the stuff, right? All the dark stuff that we kind of all face. For instance, like creative jealousy is a topic that we kind of talk about. We haven't talked about it much on the podcast, but just all these little failures, these little things, and like how much you have to be comfortable with just failing over and over and over again. And just having the persistence to just keep going, and having the confidence in yourself to keep going, even when sometimes it really feels like you're not going to be able to,
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, and we are like, man, I think everybody kind of feels this way in our field, like creative professionals. Like we all kind of, and we're kind of sick of the podcast that's like, I made my first million by blah, blah, blah. And, and it's like
the Gary
cool,
Vaynerchuks
yeah.
of the world.
Yeah. And it's like, that's awesome. And, that has its place. But sometimes people just need to hear, like, and talk about and process the crap that we deal with. And so that we were like, how about we just have conversations with our friends, and, and some people we don't know. And our first guest was Chris from Under Oath, and a mutual friend of both of ours. And because we were talking about his film scoring stuff, and man, we both fell in love with it immediately. We were like, this is awesome. Just learning from every episode. Like, we actually get to ask questions because we're genuinely curious, and it's so healing and life-giving to just talk about how hard it is sometimes and what keeps you going, So I think it's just an effort to bring people out of isolation, to get comfortable talking about the stuff that is not fun, and maybe to pursue failure a little bit more and not be afraid of it. Because look, I mean, it's really easy to say like, oh, I don't want to do that because I might fail. But what are you going to do? Like, you're not going to do anything if you're afraid of failure. And so I think we should be seeking out failure as creative people. We should be, and then, okay, yeah, cool. I just, that didn't work out the way that I wanted it to work out. So let's find the next one. And you keep going until something hits. And, yeah. So I really love being able to do that podcast. I've learned a ton from so many amazing people. Some overlap in this scene. We just had Andy from Plea, a Plea for Purging, and he was so encouraging. I think about these conversations after we have them, and I'm like, okay, how do I apply that to my own life? Like, this is cool. Like,
it's life-giving.
It is life-giving.
It's like your own personal sermon or something.
Yeah, it is. And we're all just like kind of like just coming together and sharing ideas and sharing our faults and failures. And very thankful to be able to do that.
Andy Atkins, the unintentional preacher. That's what I think of when I think of Andy.
He is. He did play a preacher in his in that one music video.
That's true.
That
oh my gosh,
that was crazy.
Great music.
Hopefully, you still got all your money.
yeah. That was filmed in my church, which is funny.
Really?
Really? Wow.
Like the church that your dad pastored at?
No. The church that I go to in Nashville.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's wild.
Yeah, it was really funny. I was like, oh, there's the anchor.
So you go to those kinds of churches. I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Oh, yeah. It's a money grabbing church. No, it's a small church that has very little money.
I love
That's
it.
great. I'd love to hear, obviously, kind of maybe the recent life of Haste today. Obviously, you guys broke up after Attack the Wolf King, or went on hiatus, however you guys want to describe it. And then a few years later, Coward comes out, and then it's been almost 9 years since, or maybe it's been 9 years now since Coward came out. So it's been almost close to 10 years since Coward came out. So it's been some time since we've heard some music. Obviously, last year you guys played Furnace Fest, and it was kind of the first thing that you guys done in a long time is play Furnace Fest last year. And then obviously you guys are playing again this year. But I'd love to just kind of hear where you're at, where the other guys are at when they think of like Haste Today. Like, is there new music that you guys have been maybe wanting to write? Is there like, can we expect more shows in the future, not just these kind of one-off things with Furnace Fest? Yeah, I'd just love to kind of hear where your thoughts are around the life of Haste Today right now.
Yeah, I probably should have consulted our manager to figure out what I'm allowed to say. But we are playing. If that says anything. Also, so we are playing a handful of shows this year, so keep your eyes out for those. Capilet Fest in Connecticut, I believe, June 28th. We're playing that. That was already announced, so I can say that, I know. And just keep your eyes out for other things. I'll just say this. We've been working really hard. And it feels good to work together again. And it's all remote, like almost all remote. We're kind of just trying to figure out what this looks like when every single one of us lives in a different state, and we all have jobs, and we all like have responsibilities outside of this. But some really great stuff is going to happen this year. I'll just say it. There's some new music that's coming out that I don't know.
You heard it here first, folks.
You heard it here first.
You got that Wikipedia. Make sure you cite the BlackSheep Podcast.
Yeah, there we go.
Wikipedia page.
So there is some new stuff. We've been working together, and it feels really good. And I feel like it's just a really interesting phase of the band because, and like I said before, we kind of talk about this legacy of like, because at this point, it kind of feels like we're not digging up dinosaur bones, but we kind of are like picking up like the flame went out, right? it extinguished a while ago, and now we're just trying to figure out what we can make out of the ashes. And I feel like we are all a lot more mature. We have a lot more to say. I think that there's a depth there. And also we all care a lot more about little things, which makes it difficult for sure. Collaboration is like, it's a lot slower these days when we're doing everything through email and text and Zoom calls and that kind of stuff. But I think that the fruit is worth it. So I'm excited. To show you guys some of the stuff that we've been working on, and
Heck yeah.
Man,
I think it'll be cool.
I feel like we need like a sounding board that has like one of those wah, 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 wah. 'Cause, like, that's awesome. That's incredible. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
I can't wait to hear what this later season of Haste Today is going to be.
Yeah, we went a really like folk rock vibe.
Hey, if you did, I'm in for it.
That's what that violin is for. I don't.
Yeah,
like
we went full ska.
and the ukulele.
Full ska. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, man.
Can we just give a shout out to just technology in general about, how think of like 10, 15 years ago, it would have been probably almost impossible to collaborate, especially like a band the Haste Today size, to be able to have people in every, like 5 guys in 5 different states and to still like figure out how to make music together. I mean, that is like something that's so new in human history that's even a possibility to collaborate in that way really creatively and still get really great creative kind of product out of it is really, really cool to me. And so, I love the fact that like this is even
6
a possibility.
guys in 6 different states. 6 guys
God.
now.
Okay, Under Oath.
Yeah, I know. We're like crazy. We got 3 guitar players. We're wild. Brennan is a part of this.
Awesome.
So, so it's Attack of the Wolf King with Brennan.
Heck yeah.
And we're
amazing.
Yeah, we're excited about it. I have noticed that it's like, yes, it's slower, but that's kind of a good thing because you just chew on it for longer. You know what I mean? You like we've been writing choruses and like me and Brennan and Mike just bouncing ideas off of each other, and it grows very slowly. But then what happens at the end is like, whoa, that is a really thought out, well-crafted piece of music. Yeah, because we chewed on it for so long, and all the stuff that sucked about it got spit out. You know what I mean? Like,
you guys are basically musical sommeliers now.
Yeah, this is. Oh, I smell cherry in this vocal take.
I love it. All right, I think it's time for top 5 most influential albums.
Okay,
you can go in any order you choose. You can come up with them right off the top of the head. If you need a moment, we can give you a moment.
Cool. A to B Life, Me Without You.
For sure.
Of course.
For sure.
Of course.
I expected that from you. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I loved that record so much, and I remember seeing them in, what was that, 99 at Cornerstone? Maybe it was 2000 at Cornerstone.
We get it. You're an OG. We get it.
Well, no, I was young. I was like, maybe, how old was I? I was like 14 or something. I was 13 years old. When I saw them, and it was Tooth and Nail Day, and they blew my mind. They were all wearing these like leisure suits, with like frilly. I just remember they looked like, the way I was describing them then was like Shakespearean actors on stage, but they weren't. It was just how I could process it. They looked like it was
more like Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe like a little bit
Prince, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more theatrical. And they had roses. They bought like a ton of roses, and they were throwing flowers out, and it was just the coolest thing I had ever seen. Yeah, I loved it so much. Let's see. Liberate te ex inferius, Zao.
Yeah.
That record, and it's hard to, I don't know if it's that one or Blood and Fire, but both of those albums. Can I just join those two together into one thing?
Nope. You have to pick one. Sorry.
All right. Well, I'm gonna say Liberate, but yeah, that, I mean, I was so scared of that album. It was
Yeah.
so scary and
Yeah.
cool. That intro song was like this instrumental, like crazy. I don't know. It was just, it was a very cool album, and that was very influential on my life. Here's a totally different vibe. Sky Blue Sky by Wilco.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
Most
be the
You
first
do
Wilco we've ever
listen to
done
NPR. I knew it.
Yeah, Sky Blue Sky. The song Impossible Germany. We were on tour with Norma Jean, and they had a sound person, Lucy Barankova, and she checked the PA every day with this song, and it was the most amazing thing I had ever heard. And it has this it has this guitar solo that goes on for like 3 minutes. That's the happiest thing. And like, it's just the happiest thing I've ever heard in my life. And at a time when I was just so over metal, I was over people getting in fights at our shows. I was just really burnt out on the whole thing, getting punched in the chest. Like, cause I was like, I'm just not angry. I'm like, I just want to chill out. Like, let's just chill. And it was really helpful for me on the road to like switch gears. And I think that kind of gave me more life to go out and jump around and get crazy, because I could also have some chill time.
I was gonna say, it kind of sounds like you would have rather have been in like a doom metal band or something like that. If you wanted to just like chill out but still listen to heavy music.
I probably would have. Yeah. Like just something very ethereal, and yeah, and I would have played guitar probably. But let's see. Okay, how many is that? 3?
That's 3 of them, yeah.
Well, this is funny, but When Everything Falls was very
yes.
influential.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved that album. I really liked Burning Bridges, and I really loved When Everything Falls. So that was good. One more. Let's see. I'm deciding between a few different ones because there's so many good ones.
The last one's always the toughest one.
I got to figure out. Hold on. I got to make sure I say the name of this right. So you can edit my.
No worries.
I'm not ashamed to say that I burned CDs all the time.
Still now?
No.
I was gonna say.
I don't even know where I can play a CD.
Yeah, all of our devices have totally left that world.
Yeah. Regulate the Chemicals by 238.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That
Little Chris Staples.
Yeah.
That record, I couldn't remember which one, if it was You Should Be Living or Regulate the Chemicals, but Regulate the Chemicals, I think, was the one. I was jamming that. I drove a van, like a Chevy conversion van in high school, because I was in a band, right? So,
yeah. And your dad was a pastor.
My dad was a pastor. Yeah. And so
was it, was it the church's conversion band?
No, that they didn't get a conversion van until later. They actually bought the van that we were going to tour in from the band after I joined Haste today. Yeah. That one was Susan. We called her Susan.
Of course.
My van was Howard.
Howard.
Howard the Cowardly Van is what we called him. because he was real. It was a short van. It was like a Chevy conversion van sport model. So it was like
Astro van.
No, it looked like the big van, but it was just shorter. It was just like this little stubby van. It was like maybe 2 feet shorter than the big one. Still had the bench that went down to a bed in the back, and
Sure,
a little spot for a little tiny tube TV that was like this big that we played Nintendo on.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. But yeah, so I'd drive around jamming that record just so loud, and it was I just love it. I love the tones on that album. And then one bonus record, Control, Page of the Line.
Oh yeah.
Lyrically, just rocked my world at the time, and musically as well. So
yeah.
Okay, back to 238 for a second. I don't know if you guys know this, but Chris Staples, for his solo stuff right now, has over 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. I never would have guessed that his solo stuff blew up in that way.
Really?
I had no
I
idea.
didn't know
He
that
has
either.
over 1 million
Wasn't
monthly
it
listeners on Spotify.
Discover America or something? Wasn't that his?
So he had that, but now just under his name, he's been releasing albums for a number of years now, and he has over 1 million monthly listeners.
Good for him, man. That's awesome.
Isn't that sick? Yeah,
I need to
really
listen to
killing
this. Wow.
I think he's still in the Pacific
Follow.
Northwest somewhere too, like Seattle or wherever.
The picture on Spotify is very Pacific Northwest, just in its filter.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like the Pacific North. The people in Tennessee don't do filters like that.
I kind of wonder if
what's the filter in Tennessee?
It's like definitely more of a I don't know.
Just says live, laugh, love over it.
Yeah, there'd be a lot more. Yeah, there'd be a lot more denim, probably.
Denim, and then like some like nondescript mural downtown.
Maybe one of those felt cowboy hats.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that all the girls wear.
Yeah. And you see them at mega churches too.
Oh yeah. They're listening
if the worship leader, especially if she's a woman and she isn't wearing that hat, that's like she's out of the church. She's not even a Christian.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh God, I'm starting to get sick, I think. Just thinking about this conversation.
We're gonna have another conversation at another time then.
I can really go deep into. You want me to talk about mega churches? I can go deep.
Let's go deep sometime. That'll be for the next episode. What would you like to plug? Obviously, new music at some point.
On the horizons.
Yep,
we're excited.
Just keep your eye out. Follow the Haste Today Instagram. Get on the mailing list. We are trying to be better at social media, so you'll see more there. Check out Beautiful Failures if you like deep conversation and you like hearing from creative, talented people. And
NPR voices that aren't on NPR.
Yeah, and NPR voices. Here we go. But yeah, so check that out. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I've got to plug.
Beautiful Failures. And your composure business, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see what I've been up to, you can go to stephenkeech.com and check out some of the stuff that I've been doing. I score a lot of commercials, and I did a Marvel
that
commercial.
Have been on the
Marvel GNC. I wish I would be a lot richer if I had. I did just get a song on Law and Order SVU on 2.
Hell yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. Which is really, I saw it on my royalty statement just a couple days ago. I was like, what? It was a song that I did years ago that's like, it's not anything to write home about, but I actually would never show it or post it anywhere. But apparently they liked it enough to put it on SVU.
That's like my dream job someday, is just like pick songs that go in TV shows or movies. I think that's like the greatest
music supervisor, man. Do it.
I gotta find a way in.
Yeah.
Go for it.
How do you get that job?
You just get really good at making playlists and discovering artists,
I'm
and
terrible at making playlists. I have
and
YouTube
then make
music.
friends with people who make movies and TV shows.
That's the hard part.
Easy,
You know,
easy enough, Cullen.
Because
that said, though, we do have a friend named Dan Koch that
I
now
love
has
Dan.
he has a second house from making music
Yeah.
for commercials and stuff.
I'm
I
going to
give
be
a lot
on
of
his
shit about it.
podcast too.
Oh, his podcast is great. He's a great person.
I love
he's
it.
also a prick at times, and we love him for it.
Oh yeah. Actually, funny story about Dan. My wife and I, when we were dating, Dan was there, and I don't even remember what it was about, but they got into an argument because he's very opinionated.
Oh,
and
very.
she's very opinionated, and it was like, I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm an Enneagram 9 who like I can't handle conflict. So like I'm just, guys, please, like let's just you guys are both right. Let's just move on. But yeah, it was that was a good summer. That was a fun summer. But
That sounds awesome.
but yeah, he's an awesome guy, and his podcast is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm late to the game, but I just started getting into it. He's got a lot of really great stuff to say.
Yeah, for sure. It's even better when he actually remembers to hit record on his end. When we do a 3-hour podcast.
Is that what happened to y'all?
Yeah, we did a emo thing on his
Emo
music
draft,
podcast, and
Oh my
he forgot to
gosh.
press record.
So you guys just had a really great conversation.
We
It
had
was an
it
awesome
was a great conversation.
with 4 people. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, at least you guys had some fun, right?
Oh, it was a blast. It was a
Yeah, I'm
blast.
pretty sure I drank way too much that night.
I was hammered
Yeah,
at the end. of it.
that makes sense. Oh man, yeah. I feel like if we don't record Beautiful Favors at night very often, but if actually there was one, and yeah, me and Andy probably drank
After
it.
dark is what you're saying?
Yeah, the after dark version. But yeah, I feel like it would be a whole different podcast if we did that.
All right.
Oh,
Anything
man.
else you'd like to plug?
So I wasn't gonna say, but I don't know if I can say this.
You can. It's all right.
Okay, so
this is the BlackSheep Podcast. There's gonna be 2 people that hear you say this, so I think
Yeah.
you're fine.
Yeah.
well, okay. This is an interesting fact about Haste today.
Okay.
Do you remember the song "Fearless"?
Yes, of
Mhm.
course.
Yeah, the Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
That was a Haste today demo that got rejected.
What?
Yeah, that
But
was
I
like
thought she
something we
wrote
were
I
working
thought she wrote all her own songs.
on. I mean, the industry is dark, man. Like people are not always telling the truth.
Oh my gosh.
So wait, I'm trying to think back. I don't remember every Taylor Swift song I've ever heard because I've never listened to a Taylor Swift song willingly. So is there like a chugga 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 chug kind of riff in that?
Well, they
song
took all that
I don't
out,
remember?
but it was like
Okay.
at first it was like "Head first, fearless," but like it's not
Dude.
like that on her version.
So wait, it got rejected as a Haste the Day song, and then somebody in the industry
Yeah, because
heard
Haste
it
Today
and
doesn't
picked it up?
actually. We didn't write all of our songs either, so we were pulling.
Yeah,
we
you
were
guys did
pulling
like
from
Blink.
a
Or
writer
you guys,
pool.
yeah, you guys did Black Eyed Peas.
We did, yeah, and that was
Yeah.
also we had recorded that song before the Black Eyed Peas recorded it because we're pulling from all the same
Oh, I love
Uh,
this.
same
Man.
Wow.
pool of unrecorded songs.
So
we
there's,
decided
like-
to release it later because we were like, okay,
Yeah.
it's working for the Black Eyed Peas. So.
When are you gonna do Fearless Haste the Day's version?
We might release
in parentheses.
the demo that we recorded, back in like I actually wasn't a part of that version
Sure.
of the band. It was like in 2000 or something like that. But,
Oh. So there needs to be a cease and desist for Taylor Swift is what you're saying.
well, I mean, they still pulled it from the same writer, but
Sure.
yeah.
But I suppose if you put down a demo, I mean, you did record it.
We did record it.
You
So,
could timestamp
Well,
it.
if you re-record it, then and then release it, then I could it would be like Fearless Haste the Day's version, and then I could like put it as like my bumper sticker on my car, and that would be a nice thing.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Oh
Or-
man.
You guys could just pull a 180 and do a Taylor Swift and then re-record all of your old stuff exactly the same.
Honestly, maybe. What about like what if we just did like folk versions of all the songs?
Oh man,
Okay.
that'd be beautiful.
Oh, this is just a side note, but there were several times where they made us do like acoustic sets, and
How did
I
that
don't-
go?
Who's they making you?
Bad.
Who's the they? Chad Johnson?
no,
Brandon
it's just
Ebel?
like the higher ups would book these things, and then we'd be told like the day before, oh, you guys have to go play on a you have to, this really happened. We had to go play an acoustic set at a kids show, in like a live kids show in South Africa. I think that
Kids show?
that was that
with like
actually-
Rafi?
Was
Or
there
the
like a
Wiggles or
clown
something?
there?
like
or what?
no, there were no famous kids performers there, but we had to play for all these kids
I am
just
so
sitting around
confused
us
right
Indian
now.
style. Yeah, it was the most awkward situation.
You're like
performance
thinking
of
about how
our
they got
lives.
stitches in their mouth and all that stuff.
Yes,
And they're like,
I
and
don't
they're like,
remember which song we did. Maybe Brennan did like Autumn or something.
Autumn
which
would
is
make
such a
sense.
depressing song
is-
to play
it
for a
would-
bunch of kids.
It has a little more palatability for children, I would say.
Yeah, probably. But that's where we got the idea for traveling ABCs. I don't know if that's a deep cut. I don't know if you guys
I'm
even
not,
know. What
I'm
that
not
is.
aware of what that is.
If you bought, I guess that was on the bonus or like the deluxe version of Attack of the Wolf King.
Oh, I had the deluxe version.
There was a DVD that was in that version.
Oh man, I watched the DVD, but that's been forever ago now.
On the DVD, there is a music video for a song called The Traveling ABCs. And we
Okay.
recorded that music video in my house in Indianapolis. And it is real goofy.
I swear to God, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to go find that.
Is it
right now and
better?
watch
Is it
it.
more goofy than A Plea for Purging music videos?
It's a different kind of goofy
Okay.
because maybe a drier humor.
It's more Monty Python, less.
Yeah, it's like more Tim
Shrek.
and Eric or something. It's
Tim and Eric.
it was real weird. And we I don't even think any of us thought about this, but we definitely said wanker in the kids song. It says the line is W is for wanker, wombat, walrus, witch, and witch.
It
And,
is.
yeah.
It looks like it appears as if this music video is on YouTube.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
I wanted to go watch it on the actual DVD.
Yes.
I haven't series.
I chose
Oh.
Wix for my business because of
Okay,
its
you're gonna- is it
massive
only
scope
like a minute
for
long?
functionality
Yeah.
and freedom of creation.
We ready? Oh my god.
I is for Africa,
B's for banana.
C is for cheers mate,
D's for didgeridoo.
E is for elephant,
F is for France.
G8 is for the gallop of a
Horse named Rance.
I is for ice cream,
J's for the jellyfish.
K is for the kitten on the porch over there,
L is for lion.
M is for monkey,
N's for the 99 pops on the wall.
O is for ostrich,
P's for your passport.
Q's for the queen on the throne over there,
I's for rhino.
S is for snake,
T is a drink or type 2 loves please.
U's United Kingdom,
V is the vinegar.
W is for wanker, wombat, walrus, wench and witch,
X is for xylophone.
Y is for you.
Z is the sleep you get after this song.
Accents on point. Holy cow, man.
Wow.
That's
yeah, you guys didn't
great.
expect to get that on this podcast.
I also wasn't expecting that good of accents.
Yeah. Mike was always really great with accents. Anywhere we went, he was able to mimic whatever.
Cullen,
accent.
you're very good at accents too.
Sometimes I am. We did
All
have
of my
North-
accents sound like British accents.
We just had Northlane on. They're from Australia, and when he came on the podcast, I just started speaking in an Australian accent, and he was like, "Wait, is this is this from Australia? Are you from Australia? And I was like, no, I'm from South Dakota. He's like, where?
Got it.
Yeah. I was like, that's not too bad if I can fool him. So yeah. It's
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah, it was a fun time. And
I am gonna teach my son. He's a year and a half right now. I'm gonna teach him with that video now.
yeah, he'll learn his ABCs real quick. with that
We're gonna
video.
watch it
It's-
over
it's
and
actually,
over and over again.
I can't wait till he gets
Yeah.
to W.
Yeah.
You guys are gonna be encroaching on Miss Rachel territory here soon. If
I
you
know.
put out another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see if there's a traveling ABCs part 2.
Oh, there's gotta be.
Hey,
Yeah.
when
I
I
love
hear
it.
new Haste Today music, that's immediately what I'm expecting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean,
It should be.
really,
It should be like.
it-
It should be bumper or intro music for you guys sometime.
There
it
you
should
go.
be maybe like an intro, intro to
Yeah.
the show. Furnace Fest
There you go.
2024.
Furnace Fest 2024. Let's hear
There
it.
we go.
Traveling
Yeah,
There we
ABCs.
go.
Oh man.
Love
Yeah,
it.
it's very on brand for us.
Sweet. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for chatting more about Haste Today. We're super, super stoked for
Yes.
the new music that will eventually be in the world. Haste Today is, again, one of those bands that I've been listening to for almost 20 years now. And so for you and the rest of the band to kind of be a part of my life in that way, really means a lot that you were willing to, come on and chat a little bit more. And again, we're just super, super stoked to not only see you at Furnace Fest this year, but also to hang out and listen to more music in the eventual future. So thank you so much, Stephen.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Love it.